Hey everyone. We had last week off so that you could enjoy the holiday if you celebrated with your family, but it is Wednesday, which means we're bringing some good Wednesday wisdom to you here on Trap Chat Live. I'm so excited to be joined by Kat Kibben. Please use their pronouns, they, them. Don't get in my comments misgendering people because I will correct you one time and then that will be it. But anyway, Kat's been someone we have never met in person, but we have been known to Zoom call to talk about people very badly. Uh, not people that we
And
know, not people that we know, like people who do dumb stuff online.
exactly.
Yeah, talk about people badly. Collaborate on I've been fortunate enough to collaborate on a few writing projects with them, and just happy to have them here to talk about job postings. They are a keynote speaker, an LGBTQ plus advocate. You will find them featured in such places as the Chicago Tribune, Forbes. They're a LinkedIn top voice. Hey, that means something when I bring those type of people on Trap Chat Live. Not so just know that like they're not a loser. What else? They're not. Where else? And the reason why they're here is because they are probably um, one of so they have carved out a niche in our little HR talent acquisition ecosystem as the preeminent and go-to job posting person. And you may think that's not a real job. Well, yeah, it actually is because everything about getting hired into an organization, like outside of the business operation stuff, starts with the job posting. So I'm very excited to have you here. If you want to introduce yourself a little bit different, please go on and do that.
No, that was a really kind introduction. My joke's always that like, I'm the plumber of recruiting. You only call me for one thing, right? You call me to fix the thing, and it is the job posting because, like you said, if we aren't even identifying what we're looking for, we'll never find it. And a lot of
Yes.
people disregard this content as not important in the process.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, and one other thing, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about this. Hashtag you'll see at the bottom says van life cat. So we might touch on that if you're wondering what that is. But as you can tell, they're not in a van right now. They're in a home base. So let's jump right in. You've got
Mhm.
15 years of experience. Started out in, I believe, recruitment marketing.
Yep.
Okay. Um, how'd you land on like becoming the superhero of job postings?
Yeah, if you looked at my resume, you might be confused.
Okay.
Truly. Let's all pray that I never have to go look for a traditional job again because it's a little all over the place, but it all adds up to this, right? So,
Okay.
I've worked in marketing for HR technology companies. I've been a blogger
Mhm.
for recruitment blogs, and that was really the beginning of recognizing this big problem, which is
Okay.
there are a lot of problems in recruiting. Hiring is always hard, but the reason it's hard is a little different at every single company. The reason it's hard is because we don't actually focus on the variables we can control. We get really worked up about, oh, there's no talent, this
Mhm.
person doesn't exist, etc., which may be true. However, I think we often don't distill it down to the problems that we can solve. And one of the problems that I saw over and over again is no one in recruiting knew how to write. They knew how to
Mm.
talk. They knew how to tell the story once they got the right candidate on the phone, but they felt this huge lack of confidence when I said, write that down. And so
Oh.
my last job before I started this business, I was a technical copywriter for Fortune 100s. I was
Okay.
writing for a lot of brands you've definitely heard of, and I'm sitting in these rooms where they have 60 recruiters on their team, and not one person can write a sentence that I would put on the internet. And
Jesus.
so I know, right? And so the business started just saying we would teach recruiters how to write, but here's the catch: recruiters don't want to learn how to write. And
True.
And so I read this book called The Story Brand. And if
Okay.
you're an entrepreneur or really thinking about how to tell your story, highly recommend the book because they have this framework about a hero journey and they asked for a universal problem. And I'm like, this dude hasn't worked for recruiting before because recruiters don't have universal problems. Everybody thinks they're special,
Yeah.
right? But the one thing they all have in common, especially when it comes to writing, is they all have job postings.
Yes.
And so, lucky enough, I was actually referred to speak at Bamboo HR and they asked me to speak on job postings. And I was like, y'all, I don't know much right now. They're like, do some research and present it. I got
Okay.
so invested in this problem by the time I started digging out all of the pieces that at the end I offered to write job postings for free. And no joke, I don't do that anymore. Don't get excited,
Okay.
Andrew.
Yeah. No, I
But
wasn't. I was like,
no joke. And I was on a plane when this aired because it was a
mhm,
recording.
okay.
And I offered, and 300 people contacted me in 30 minutes.
Wow.
Within about a day, I had 1,000 responses to that
And you did
message.
1,000 job postings for free.
I hired people. I
Okay.
did whatever it took because I'm just stubborn enough to actually follow through on the promise, and I wasn't going to overpromise and not deliver. So we
Okay.
sat down with every single one and we built a methodology based on doing it.
Gotcha. So tell me again, what was the book recommend? What the book
It's
title?
called The Story Brand by Donald Miller.
Donald Miller. Okay. All right. So let's get back to that. Hopefully, some of those recruiters and or companies and or hiring teams who reached out to you, I hope they at least, gave you a little honorarium, at least a few of them. No?
I think they paid me in their wealth of information and it made it
Okay.
what it helped me do is distill the most common problems with job postings
Okay.
because I went into it with the wrong impression. So I
Mm,
thought job postings would be different based on industry, based on level, but nope, the formula is the same no matter the job. And that's how we built 3 years is figuring out that formula, knowing it worked and being able now to train other people on what we do because as much as I want to rewrite every job posting in the world, I don't have time for that. And
yeah.
so it's a lot more training than doing now.
Okay. So when someone says, you know what, when someone reaches out to you, like what is the main question or the main problem as it relates to the job posting that they're asking you to solve?
So I think there are 3 particular things that we hear a lot.
Okay.
The first one is that no one's applying.
Okay.
No one is applying to these jobs. The second one is the one that I hear the most often, which is I know they suck, but I don't know what to do.
Okay.
And the third is that they are looking at their overall process and they're realizing that there's this pain point right
Hmm.
there. And they don't want to put more weight on their recruiters who are already overwhelmed with their hiring and requisition load.
Okay. Well, and we thank you for that, by the way, because those of us who have been full life cycle recruiters have also been and 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 have had to do a lot of the other functions as a part of our jobs, just not because we wanted to, not because we think that we are some kind of um, you know, untouchable and all-knowing creatures, but out of necessity to keep things moving. So we've had to learn, different aspects of different parts of the hiring life cycle that aren't necessarily in our process swim lanes. So I appreciate you pointing that out and you saying that. We got a great comment from Wendy. Hey Wendy, hey John. They checked in, and I'm pretty sure that's Lex. That said, "Love you, cat," but I can't tell because she doesn't come up as her name. She comes up as LinkedIn user, so I'm
Depends where you're
thinking that's
watching
Lex.
and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Wendy says, "So true. We don't teach our recruiting staff how to write. Very few places will ever train the recruiting staff on how they want them to recruit." Oh, so let's stay there because
Yeah.
we've got recruiters and we've got HR folks and we've got HR tech folks watching as well. I'm going to take the position that it's not necessarily the recruiter's responsibility to write the job description. I think that they have to have good descriptions from which they can build a job ad or a job posting. What I mean by that is the thing that other people are going to see. Because a job description is really an internal compensation document. It's the thing that we use to level positions to make sure people are paid equitably, to make sure that anyone who has this title, that they have the same years of experience. And I know we're going to get into that. And how do you feel about that? The same level of education, the same span of control, the same level of supervisory responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera. Like those things are things that people don't care about. Like the people that are going to apply for the job, they don't care about that, senior principal, whoop-de-doody-da job title. They don't care. And recruiters do need, I think, like they need to be adept at taking those senior whoop-de-doo job titles and making them more descriptive, and then taking those descriptions and making them more palatable and more understandable to the public. But I don't think recruiters should be responsible for being the ones that actually craft the job descriptions. How do you feel about that, Kat?
So the way that I think about it is that there are 3 phases of every job, and these are built around the idea that we want to build equity and understanding, because we can't create equitable content if we don't actually understand the role. So
Okay.
I 100% agree the job description should be created by compensation.
Okay.
One addition I would make is that you really need to understand your pay band as aligned to the experiences that person has had. So what I mean by that is, if you have and now that salary is required on job postings, this matters even more,
Mhm.
that we need to understand what the minimum skills are aligned with salary and what experiences would put someone at the top, or you will continue to pay the best negotiators, not the best talent. But
Ooh, I like that.
Mhm. But the job description lives in a filing cabinet, like you said. It
Mhm.
is the beginning. It should never be on the internet, because if you and I don't understand it, candidates surely do not. The job posting is what I teach people to write. It's a
Okay.
marketing version of a job description. And frankly, I don't care who writes it as long as they're trained.
Okay.
And that the recruiter and the manager are aligned on what it says and the ultimate, like, what we're trying to attract.
Okay.
So that marketing version has to convey the most important decision-making information for the person on the other side, meaning impact of their work, everyday activities, and mandatory requirements. If you just knock that out in a way that people can understand, you're doing better. The final piece is a job ad. If you write a great job posting, you could take sentences right out of that and just use
Mhm.
it to market the job. It is not an extra layer of work. Here's the
Right.
one thing that I want to emphasize, though. No matter what, a recruiter must be great at hiring manager intake, whether
Mhm.
you write it, whether they write it. Because if you can't define the finish line, if we cannot very specifically describe the experiences this person has had that would qualify them for this job, you cannot hire the right person. Recruiters have to be better facilitators and ask better questions. And I think that's where the largest talent gap comes. Like
Yes.
Wendy said, they don't train recruiters to do these things, but ultimately we need to train recruiters to ask better questions.
I like that. I like that. I appreciate that. And as someone who does still do intake calls, because you'll hear people say they don't do them anymore, but I'm a consultant, so I give everyone that level of service as I would be, trying to get to the pain point, trying to find the answer. And I promise you that I am still, 22 going on 23 years, still have people saying, "Oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Thank you."
Yeah. Well,
Like, because our intake calls consist of what's the salary, what's the job hours, how many
yes.
people are, if it's a supervisory role or manager, how many years experience, will you pay for relocation? Like, we don't ask the real questions. I ask, what are the top 3 things? Like, if if you said yes, I'm going to hire this person today. Like, You don't even have to interview anybody else. What are the
Yeah.
top 3 things they're gonna tell you? And people don't want it, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know." And then they start going through, well, they have to have 5 years of no, that's not what I asked you.
Yes, and you just hit on a really important point. Recruiters complain about being treated like order takers. Don't
Mhm.
ask for a list and you won't get treated like an order taker,
Right.
right? You know how the example I like to use is when you order food from a restaurant. You go
Mhm.
online, you order all your stuff. I'm a sauce person, so I'm always
Okay.
adding all these sauces. I want a side of buffalo, I want a side of ranch, I want a side of this, right? And if I get my meal and there is no side of whatever, I am shitty about it. Like, I
Oh.
am not going to enjoy that meal because 9 times out of 10, I'm ordering because I'm craving the sauce, not the food. Now, I give that example because that's what happens in recruiting. When
Mhm.
you go in and you ask for a list and you forget one thing on that list or one thing, that candidate doesn't have the one thing, you know what that manager is going to do. But I said this one thing. And you don't want, if you don't ask for an order in the first place, you won't be treated like an order taker.
Right. I love that. Great comment from Christina Minyard, who I like to call Christina Mignard because we're French. We should never, ever stop doing intake calls. I don't care if you've recruited for this role 20 times for this hiring manager, something could be, in parentheses, should be different this time. And you are absolutely correct. So thank you for that comment. I do want to shift just a bit. Because I want to talk about some things for job seekers to
Yeah.
be looking out for in terms of their job postings. But I do want to not let you, leave this hiring manager recruiter conversation portion without talking about biased language and in language that is not inclusive.
Yeah.
So if you can just high level, because I don't believe in giving away people's intellectual property and the things that they monetize for free. So if you could just give like a high level of some things that recruiters and or hiring managers can do right now that will help their jobs postings be more inclusive and come across as less biased.
Yeah. So I think one thing I do want to point out too is like in 2020, I was challenged. I was on a panel just like this, and someone asked me, "What have you done to make job postings more inclusive?" And frankly, I hadn't really thought about it, right? I
Okay.
was just thinking about the technique, and I didn't think about the fact that job postings were created in this capitalist, racist society, and that inherently they have these trends engaged in them simply because we've always done it the same way.
Hmm.
And so the basis of research I did is we did a 100-year research study of job postings. We pulled
Yeah.
samples from every decade and tried to find trends that aligned with social movements. And so all of our recommendations are based on actual history and when we started to see this trend rise to understand how they were creating bias simply because people were using job postings to keep people out instead of invite them in.
Ooh, gotcha.
So, one of the ones people don't think about is college degrees. So, the
Mhm.
first time you'll see college degrees prominently listed on job postings is right around the 1960s. I'm pretty sure you know what was happening in the world around the 1960s, the civil rights movement. And specifically in the Southeast, you see a very significant increase in college degree requirements because they knew Black and Brown people of color did not have access to college degrees at that time. So they used it to create a 4-year gap between people and jobs. And so people don't think of college degrees as having racist roots, and those requirements do.
Yeah.
They are built when you build it out of those moments when we keep repeating things that have happened in history without ever questioning it. That's where the bias is happening. So, college degree requirements are the first example I would give, right? If you're requiring a degree that you did not learn how to do at school, if you don't open a textbook, no degrees required. Okay. So I want my doctor to have a degree. I want my accountant to have a degree. I want my lawyer to have a degree. But
Yeah,
my
and your
marketing
engine
team,
well,
yes.
certain engineers.
Civil engineer, hell
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
my chief marketing officer, don't care.
No.
Not even a little bit.
Sadly, your recruiter?
Yep.
No.
Mm-mm.
And really, like, we got all these degrees and we got all these certifications and we got all these master's degrees for
The
Because we
other
still can't
one,
write job postings.
yes.
Sorry.
No. The other one is years of experience. So the first time
Yeah.
you see years of experience start to come onto job postings is when technology became a part of work. Because the
Mhm.
older workforce was using it to keep this young talent who was
Out.
using computers out. Now, fast forward, we're using years of experience to keep older talent out. Because when you say 1 year of experience, you expect someone young to show up. When you say 20 years of experience, you expect someone older to show up.
Mhm.
And we're using them as gates. And they only quantify time. They don't qualify people because you and I could have the exact same job for 4 years, and it does not mean we do the same work.
Yes, yes. So we've got the comments are going off, and I'm trying to pay attention to you and not, but I had to read some of these because they
I
make
love
sense.
it.
So can you imagine what would happen if we just stopped, all caps, requiring degrees on jobs that don't need it? Yeah,
We have great
we
talent.
wouldn't have jobs open long enough for us to justify some of the things that we sorry. My mother might be watching, and I don't, I mean, she knows I curse, but she doesn't like it when I curse out like this excessively, because Jesus wept. um uh Christina said, wait, I'm missing something. We got these 4-year degrees to send emails all day, 5 days a week. Wendy says, there's a reason I don't have a master's degree, Shade. We'll talk about that when you're on the show next week. Uh, Christina, again, oh my God, the sauce example. Thank you for summarizing it that way. I don't want those McNuggets. I want the sweet and sour sauce that comes with those McNuggets.
If Lex is
Um,
watching, she will know this. Last year, I was at her house and her husband went and got us food. And I very explicitly said, don't even order it if they don't have the sauce. And he came home without the sauce. And she and I both were like, what? You,
right.
I get it.
How dare you
Conversation.
come home without sauce? All right, and then just going back a little bit more, Wendy, again, how many organizations actually share with their recruitment team how they actually come up with their compensation bands? We need to stop with the market value, meaningless unless people all understand what that means in the organization. So I want you guys to take that. I want that to be one of the takeaways, to think about that. You don't have to answer right now, but think about, is your do you really understand your compensation band, and did
Mhm.
you go and get that information, or or was that readily available to you? Did you have to go seek it out?
Exactly, especially because as of January, New York State and California are going to start requiring compensation. And if you worked in this industry long enough, you know that if New York and California do it, it's about to be
Everybody.
national.
Yeah.
And otherwise, we end up with those stupid compensation bands like the one that Chase posted recently that said 0 to 2 million. 0 to 2 million. That was the window, right? And I can only imagine what candidates are asking when they walk in, right? Because they're like, 2 million. All right.
Okay, so that's a great segue into the job seeker part. So I get this question a lot because I ask for salary ranges to be on the job posting.
Yes.
Okay. When I'm working with external clients, or I'm not working for a organization as a contractor, when I am consulting and it's my name associated with the job, like I
Yeah.
want there to be a salary range on there. And they'll say, well, I don't want to put the top because that's what they'll ask for. And my answer is always, okay. Like, what? Like,
Right.
okay.
Well, my
Why is
pushback
that a
is
problem?
exactly. If you do, again, we're going back to that whole, you have to understand the skills that align with the top of this compensation range. And
Yes.
if you don't, we perpetuate the issue with, I'll say it, white men getting paid more than everyone else because they were taught that they could negotiate and everyone else was taught to smile and be like, thank you so much.
Mhm. And
Yep.
say, "Oh, yeah, well, I guess I could do the job for X, Y, and Z." And I didn't know I was ahead of my time, but I was teaching this to the first intern class that I worked with in cybersecurity. I had we had 6 people who were doing a job that no one else was doing. Like they were part of they were in a subject matter expertise in a defense and intel contractor. They were doing some very important work, even as interns, the
Yeah.
things that they were exposed to. And one's graduated, and they said, okay, we want them to stay. The goal was to hire the interns after they so that the intern program could grow and that we could start to build this trade craft.
Of course.
And I said, I got to, make the offer because, I was technically their manager too. And I was like, so, we're gonna I was like, so, what were you thinking about salary wise? And they said, oh no, this is I was like, and I said, no. Like
Yes.
I stopped them. They were like, well, X is enough. And I said, no. I was like, you want this. And they said, oh, okay. And that person was making six figures in the next couple of years. And every time, because of that, and they'll tell you, like every time, they are not ashamed or not afraid to ask for what they want. And every time they switch jobs, they get a real increase
Exactly.
because I told them no. Like,
Yeah.
no.
And bless you for that, right? I've been so lucky that my friends have hired me and they have told me behind the scenes, okay, Kat, that's not enough. You should be asking more for work like that, especially when I started out. I'm glad Christina's here because she is one of those people that we go back and forth on pricing and having people who coach you and tell you where to be at with the number. And I think that's in the range. This is what I charge. And people who are
Hmm.
honest. And the thing that I tell candidates and recruiters is that you should ask this question. Y'all should write this down, okay? The question is this: what skills align with the top of the compensation band?
Okay.
Candidates should be asking that every single time you go in because if you're there, you should assume you meet the minimum and you should be making more than that. If you have more skills than the baseline that was listed, you should make more money than that. And recruiters should be in their intake asking the exact same question. What skills would have you pay someone the top of this compensation band? That question is a game changer.
It really is. Okay, we got another comment here. And I think this is a great comment, or a great question. Okay, but if someone asked for the lower end of the range when we publicize the full range, managers would be like, what's wrong with them? Why did they only ask for the bottom of the range?
Yeah.
How do we get around that?
I mean,
Is
I
there a
come
way
back
to?
to I I think we have an opportunity to serve candidates. I know we work with the company and we represent the company, but just like you helped those interns, we have this opportunity to say to them, you're at the bottom of the range. And the question I'll ask the candidate too, not that I speak to a lot of candidates, just to be very clear, I do not recruit. I'm a job post writer, but how I train the recruiter is that I'll ask them, hey, we provide additional compensation for this, or this experience. Do you have any
Yes,
of those?
yes, yes,
And we can lead them and really, again, create equity where it has not existed in the past
yes.
around pay
Okay.
because money
So
changes everything.
change me. Changed me.
I
I'm not
mean,
gonna lie. Not gonna
I grew up
lie.
in a family where my family was dirt poor, okay? A farm town, like full scholarships, all of that. I was very blessed that both of my parents decided to join the military and it
Mhm.
changed what was possible for my life. But
Yeah.
I recognize that there's this thing called the breakfast table effect, and it means that you are most likely to do what your parents do. If you
Mhm.
sit at a table and every single person does one thing that pays this amount, there's like a 90% chance that you will end up exactly there. We have the opportunity to help people break cycles and change their lives and change their whole family's lives. And
Yeah.
I will not act like that's something that can be treated casually because it's not.
No, it's not, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. And I want to share something personal, which I do from time to time. People don't. People have to see my humanity too. I'm not always fun and bubbly. But I remember when I got my master's in 2006, and I was at a newer company, and they finished paying for it. Whew. And let me tell you, like they told me that when I finished that I would get an increase. Well, I didn't know that like of course I was close to the comp team and especially the manager, his office was right outside of of our cubicles, and I was on holiday break and I got paid, and I called him. I said, I said, I got too much money. Like I literally said that. I was like, you pay me too much money. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I usually make this. Now I make this. Like, what is that? Like, is that a bonus? Like, what happened? And they said, no, it's because you got your degree and your salary, like $20,000 increase
Yeah.
just for getting my. And I told them that that was too much.
Okay. I
Simple.
had the same
That was
thing.
simple.
Yeah, we can change other people's lives, you know? My story was that I was working in a tutoring center
Hmm.
in Northern Virginia, which is a very, very expensive area to live in, and I was making
Mm.
$28,000. I had to live with my parents, and I do not enjoy them, so I'll just leave it at that. It was
Oh,
not a good thing. And I taught a little girl how to read, and her dad was starting a recruiting company.
oh,
And he
nice.
came in and and I'm selling to him, doing my shtick because if I'm going to do a job, I try to do it well. And he sits back and he gives me this weird look and he goes, "You're smart. I want you to work for me."
Yeah.
He never once asked me how much I was making. He never once tried to negotiate and cut my pay. He paid me what he knew was a livable wage for someone who is smart, who would work hard for him. And it was a $50,000 increase for me. Changed my life. He changed my life.
Shout out to him.
Yes,
Thank
Clint
you, sir.
Biden.
Yes. So we've got some Corey, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correct. Zuppo or Zupo. I feel like I've been following some of the best recruiter HR people on Twitter, and I love the ethical, honest discussions they have. As a job seeker, the insights are invaluable. However, I wonder how generalizable the high values and people first attitudes are among recruiters in general. I want to believe the bar is being raised. So I'm going to try to address that. And I'm going to first tell you that my answer or my response to this is going to be biased because I only surround myself and engage with highly ethical, honest recruiters.
Yeah.
I don't deal with bullshit artists. I don't deal with liars. I don't
Mhm.
deal with people who do uh, things on trend or because they are, popular at the time. And I don't deal with people who reject, we'll say, correction,
Mhm.
and who favor popularity over
People.
people. There you go. So, yes, the bar is being raised. And if you're following people like you say you are, who are having the ethical and honest discussions, stay with them and follow and listen to the other people that they're listening to and that they're following.
Mhm.
Even if they only have a few hundred followers, even if they only tweet a few times a month, that one tweet or that one blog post or that one article they share or that one comment could be the one. So yeah, just stay in your ecosystem and branch out from there. Like don't go. I don't recommend, but it's your personal business. I don't recommend always going for, like I said, the most popular people.
Yeah.
If I did that, I think I'd be in a much different place or out of recruiting completely, to be quite
Yeah.
honest.
Well, and the first thought I had is that's why shows like this exist, right?
Yeah.
Is because you are trying to raise the ethical bar. And I would say very consistently, you have challenged that. And I want to just give you that kudos. And
Thank you.
also say to Corey that as a job seeker, I think, no, you cannot assume that everyone has a high ethical bar. That's reality. But you can advocate for yourself by asking better questions. In the
Mhm.
same way that we talk about the hiring manager intake and really shifting the questions you ask to be specific, to be the kind that help inspire imagination, I would tell you that if you're a job seeker, you need to ask questions that help imagine you being there, that
Yeah.
push back on the standard. Don't ask for the salary band. Ask what skills align with the top of this role. And you can say, I have to assume I meet the bottom because you wouldn't be talking to me if not.
Right.
So what would put me at the middle? What would put me at the top?
Okay.
And force them to follow these ethics by asking really good questions. And if they can't answer, insist they answer. Be like, who do I need to ask to get that answer?
I love that. And that's going to have to be our last question about job postings, because I do want to have a little bit more fun
All
talking
right.
about non-worky stuff. But just like I asked you about what recruiters and hiring managers, what questions they should be asking about their job postings. One of the things that differentiates me as even a career coach, and I know we hate that word because career coaches are getting beat up on, like recruiters get beat up on a daily basis, like calling us all kinds of charlatans and dummies, and we don't know anything. But again, most of the career coaches I know are not like did not become career coaches. Just wake up one day and said, I'm going to help people get jobs. They're recruiters who were already doing that with the people they were talking to. So they've just added it to their toolbox. So yeah, when I talk to people, I talk to them the same way I do, especially when it comes to their resumes. I'm like, stop tailoring. I'm like, you're tailoring your resumes against job postings that suck. That's why your
Mm.
resume sucks. So, I have them approach the job post. I have them approach their resume and writing it the same way that I have hiring managers and recruiters approach the job posting. Like it's just from their lens.
Exactly.
So what's the like you gave for the hiring managers and recruiters, what's the top advice you would give to a job seeker to even identify or to target what is an inclusive and an unbiased job posting? What things should
Well,
they be looking out for?
I think the first thing that most job seekers do is we get really attached to one job title. And so I want to
Mm.
remind everyone here that all job titles are completely made up. And if you are searching for a job, at a minimum, you should be looking for 5 job titles. The way
Oh,
you'll find that is to open up the internet, type in the job title you're using right now and the word resume. Hit enter,
okay.
go to the image search results, and you can scan resumes of people like you.
Mhm.
Look at their job titles because that will give you alternative spellings, abbreviations,
Yep.
just the nuances that can help you discover the job in the first place. Because if you can't find it, it doesn't matter what it says.
Yes.
The second thing I would tell you is that if you feel like they're overselling, they are. Back away slowly. Now, I say this with a big asterisk because in recent weeks, I feel a little emotional saying this. A lot of people have called me crying, very upset because they have ended up in a bad job. And I'm sure you get these calls too. And they're calling me and they're asking me, what didn't I ask? What didn't I
Mm,
do? Is there something I should have done better? And I want to remind you that we should not hold the accountability for making a job great. It-
no.
there's a lot of things that happen outside of us. You didn't do anything wrong if you ended up in a job that is not good for you. However, if you had a pain point, if something really was bothering you about your current job, you need to take time to heal first
Yes.
and get that anger out of you because if you light that anger on fire, it'll burn forever. And I know that
Mm,
because I've been in that job. I have been burned really bad. Actually, 3 Years Media started because a manager treated me a way that I thought was completely unacceptable. It was a Thursday when he behaved that way. On Monday, I gave 2 weeks notice, and 2 weeks later, I started 3 Years Media.
wow.
So I have been there. Please don't think I'm just making this up or that I come from some like, oh, I just, had 8 months to start my company with a full No, I did this because someone treated me like shit. And so if you have deal breakers, you need to start talking about your deal breakers up front. You need to start having real conversations and you need to ask questions about what matters to you.
Yes.
When you're reading the job posting, if you have no idea what you're supposed to do every day, that means they have no idea what you're supposed to be doing every day either. Okay. So I think that's the number one red flag I want you to have. Also, the second thing I would say is if it's decent, you can use word cloud generators to start to
Yes.
identify themes. I
Yes.
really love those. They're completely free, and
Mhm.
it'll help you create you some search strings so that you know what skills are most important and what to emphasize in your resume.
Yes. Love it. So as you can see, I'm telling y'all the truth when y'all come to me. She just said everything I tell y'all, including word clouds. Like people
Yeah,
don't want
well,
to use them. Well, good
I
luck. God
learned
bless. Especially, and I tell them use them for the bad job descriptions too, because they'll see the same words over and over again. Like
administrative,
handled,
collaboration.
responsible.
Yep. And I learned this because during when the pandemic hit, people weren't hiring to write job postings. And what I realized
Mhm.
is that the formula for writing a great job posting works for writing a great LinkedIn profile. And
Yes.
so I spent a lot of time working with job seekers. And just to be very clear to anyone watching this, I don't offer that service anymore just because van life does not allow for me to be as available as I would want to be, because I understand job seekers are on a timeline. Their life is there.
Yeah.
Um, and so I definitely have seen this work both ways.
Yeah.
All of these tips we're giving you about job postings apply to your LinkedIn profile too.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And your resume.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Yay! All right, it's at 2:40. Jeez, I try to do a good job. I
When
do.
you and I start talking though,
Sorry, I'm not letting you go yet. So sorry.
I'll stay as
So
long as you want.
you just touched on it. Van life. Let's talk about it. So during the pandemic, you did a thing.
I
Share.
did. Yeah. So almost exactly 1 year ago, right around this time, I decided that I would get rid of everything I own and take an adventure. And so I bought a converted van, like a nice apartment in the back kind of thing. Genuinely, that place was nicer than some of the places I've lived. And I spent the last year traveling and running my business literally 100% remote, as in I was living on four wheels instead of four
Nice.
walls. And it has been life altering in every way that I hoped it to be, in a
In a
thousand.
good way, right?
Yes,
So
10,000%.
So where's the like most like where was that epiphany place that you went, or like this is the most beautiful place in America that you've
Yeah.
been so far?
I think Montana really surprised me. It is stunning. I mean, or the Tetons in Wyoming, these are places that I never would have gone. Okay. But when you see pictures of like the Italian Alps
Uh-huh.
and all of that, that exists here. And I think what's really cool, I'm a bit of a nerd, I read all the signs, is that they were created when glaciers met fire. And you get this, I think there's something about this idea that that huge contrast, it creates really beautiful things.
Nice.
Um, and I think that has played out over and over in my life. And also just traveling the country, it gives you a different appreciation and respect for the fact that a lot of people live a lot of different ways. And we
Absolutely.
don't realize how drastic it is because we very rarely leave our zip codes in that way.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I've never been to Montana. I've skipped over the like middle section. So haven't been to Montana, haven't been to Utah, Idaho. Of course, been to Arizona and um, um, Nevada. And now, so okay, now Nevada is like, want to talk about people living differently, like Sierra Vista.
Mm.
I call it the eighth layer of hell because listen, I would fly into Tucson and I had it down to where I could get there in an hour and a half, spend my 24 to 36 hours tops, and then get back to Tucson, which is not a nice place either, but it's
Nope.
not a layer of hell. And if anyone's wondering, the ninth layer of hell is the Scott Air Force Base area, which is both Illinois and Missouri. So like
Yep.
no. Yeah. No, it's a no for me.
Yep.
But yeah, right below that is the Sierra Vista, Nevada. Because like you can walk to Mexico from there. And I'm not saying anything bad about Mexico. I'm just saying that like it's just different. And it's not safe for me. That's all
Yes.
I'm going to say about that. All righty. So Wendy says she loves listening to us. So let's give her something good to listen to, something to take home, and maybe change her mind about pumpkin flavored desserts. Uh, so we're gonna just go ahead and move into the holiday season.
Right.
And we just came out of, if you celebrated one, where we just started it officially, for those of us who waited after Halloween. So what is your favorite holiday dessert?
Pecan pie.
Okay.
I grew up in North Carolina. We have pecan trees everywhere.
Okay. And if you had to choose between sweet potato or pumpkin pie, which one are you choosing?
I just said North Carolina, so sweet potato, clearly.
Okay. Sorry, Wendy. Wendy did, so I'm not going to beat up on Wendy, because Wendy did have, or tease her too much. Wendy did have a sweet potato pie recently, and I think she's might be favoring sweet potato over pumpkin, or eventually we're going to get her there. Um, what is an end of year like tradition that you have, either
Yeah.
individually or with your family or with your work colleagues like me?
Yeah. So I write a letter to myself at the end of every year and I put it
I
in an
love that.
envelope and I open it on New Year's Day. And I can tell you that has been a really, really beautiful thing because, you can march through life, especially as an entrepreneur, thinking there's no finish line. We just keep
Mm.
going, we work harder. And that letter is a pause and a reflection moment every single time I open it. It surprises me every time because my dreams come true and it's a
I
really
love that.
beautiful thing.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So, are you into holiday movies?
I am not. I
Okay, so then
sorry.
I won't ask you about that. Well, so everyone knows, if you used to watch Trap Chat with the Shark, then you know that, like, I'm a self-proclaimed Grinch, meaning, like, I don't like commercial Christmas. Um, I mean, whatever. Like, I don't like colored lights. I'm not really into all that. Um, but yeah, I do some of the things. I don't put up a tree
Yeah.
anymore. I did twice in my own house, but like, I'm not here anyway, so what's the point? But I do know some things. And I don't like Christmas
I hate I hate Christmas music.
Oh, would you like to be a co-Grinch with me?
Yes, 100%.
So we'll
The
get our
only
list:
Christmas
hate, hate, double hate, loathe entirely.
done, done.
All right.
The only Christmas thing I have really supported and I really love is something called Trans Santa, and
Okay.
it's for trans people who are struggling during the holidays, and it's a way that you can kinda pick a wish list and help someone,
Oh,
and they send in these letters, and it's a really powerful reminder of how blessed we are, even with our basics.
I love it. Okay. So I will take a look at that, actually.
It'll make your heart grow 3 sizes.
Oh no, I have a heart. It just isn't for commercial
Christmas.
Christmas. And notice I said commercial Christmas. Like, there's an
Yes.
adjective there. So if you are into it, Wendy says that her pumpkin ice cream is one of the best sellers. I believe her. That is fantastic. But I'm not sure if she's shipping it out. But I know that she does sell at the farmers market
Yes.
on the weekends, because I follow her on the social medias. All right, so you write this letter every year, but I'm not letting you get away with that for being your best career advice. So, what's the best career advice you never took?
Ugh. Best career advice I never took. Honestly, it was every time someone told me to quit. I I think I because of a million different reasons that I talk about in therapy, not on podcasts, I had
Yeah,
this
no, no, you
can't
don't need
quit
to.
mentality. You know? That
Okay.
that part of me that's like, you can't quit a job until you have the next thing lined up. You can't quit if it's not that bad. We've all heard that line. It's not that bad, or
That's what it is.
next place might be worse. And I had managers who were like, you gotta go. And I let some of those jobs hurt me a little too long.
Yeah.
I let them beat me up a little too long because I was scared of what's next. And so I would tell you that if something in your soul tells you you gotta go, you gotta go.
I support that 100%. And you know what? I had that advice as well. Someone that I'm still friends with to this day, who was a VP in one of the groups I managed, and they said it's time to go. Like they were like, you've outgrown. Like there's nothing else for you to do. And it took me 2 years to leave. They had to push me out. Like I even left recruiting and went into the business because I was like, well, it'll be better. Like if I go over here, then blah blah blah. Then my position was eliminated,
Mhm.
and it was the best thing that happened to me. It
Yep.
was the best thing because I wouldn't have gone. I'd still be there. I'd still be there complaining.
Yep. There you go.
Complaining and being annoying as always. Corey says she's nodding. All right, so we gotta get you a song to add to the playlist. You know how I love music. What is that one song that you know? And I'm gonna put it in the van life when you were driving down the road that you can play over and over again. That just
You know,
keeps you centered.
Spotify just told me what song I abused this year.
Oh,
So there's a song called Known.
known.
It's actually kind of a Christian song, just to be really clear, but it's this idea that
We
you can
like
be.
Christian music.
I know. I just want to add clarification to some people. It's not for everyone. But what I
Right.
thought was really beautiful about the song is it's this idea that you can be fully known and fully loved.
Oh, who sings it?
It's by someone named Tauren, Tauren, and the last name is Wells,
You.
Wells.
Okay. Do you know this song, Maurice?
It's a really, really beautiful song.
Does anyone else know it? Okay. Known. I'm gonna look it up when we get off. All righty. Whew. I have enjoyed it. I'm reluctantly giving people back their time because I overran a bit. They'll be okay. I know they
We're still
enjoyed it
here.
too. Yeah, whatever. But do come back next week. We're going to continue with the holiday fun, and we're going to start a few of many crossovers. Starting off December is Wendy Daly, who was one of the, or still is, they just don't have the show anymore. One of the HR Wonder Women. Oh, a lot of us have been on that podcast also. Um, she also does, what's it called? What's it called? HR Happy Hour?
Yep.
Am I saying that right? Okay.
You
Ouch.
should tell us.
But she'll be on next week, and hopefully by then we'll be fully on the side of sweet potato, fully divested from pumpkins, because pumpkins are for October. Um, Maurice says he's taking. Oh, he'll be talking about the breakfast table effect. Ooh. Thank you for joining, Corey. Corey says thank you. Running to a meeting. Yeah, I know we went over. Um, Everyone, great convo. All right, all right. So yeah, come back next week. HR Social Hour. Sorry about that. Join in on next Wednesday. We're going to have some more fun stuff to talk about from a fellow Gen X recruiter, my favorite. We're going to bring you some more heat, some more great advice, and hopefully some more fun to coast us into 2023. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye bye.